Hey everyone, it's Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. I'm going to be reviewing a new show, for me at least. It's an old show, but it's new for me. Hornblower, Season 1, Episode 1, The Even Chance. This show aired in the 1990s. I think it runs like 9 episodes or so. So it's about Horatio Hornblower. So to keep this brief, who is Horatio Hornblower? He's a character who was created by C.S. Forrester, who I mentioned before in my review of Hornblower, of Captain Horatio Hornblower, RN, which is a 1953 movie. I think I reviewed that 6 weeks ago. And of course, in my review for Greyhound, C.S. Forrester wrote Greyhound, the book Greyhound was based on, as well as the Horatio Hornblower novels. The Horatio Hornblower novels ran from, well, I should say, novels and short stories. Started in 1937 with The Happy Return, and ended in 1967 with Hornblower and the Crisis, which was a unfinished novel that was published later or something like that. Had a couple, right. So that was the last eventually published thing, so to speak. Now, the stories are about a naval officer who starts as, I'm guessing, you'll hear it in the show, but he rises he's an officer. He rises in the ranks, so to speak, and he as a midshipman, starts as a midshipman, and rises eventually to be an admiral by the end of the novel series. I don't know. Now the TV show is based on the first 3 books, so there are. I'll get this for you right away. This way we don't have to keep guessing this, right? 2, 4. So the TV show is 8 episodes, right? It started. This guy's name is tough to pronounce. Ione Griffith, whose name is very Welsh sounding to me. He plays Hornblower. Griffith, yeah, and he's a good actor. I've seen him in a couple other things before. I remember a TV show. Trying to remember the filmography. The show. Show about an immortal. Only ran 1 season. Forever. It's called Forever, and I thought it had potential. I thought it had real potential. He played an immortal character, had no real special powers other than he could never die. Even when he died, like physically was killed, he in particular would be reborn in the ocean, and his death and life were associated with water. Right. I thought it had real potential. Anyway, he's been in other stuff. He's done voice acting, like in Batman: The Brave and the Bold, Justice Unlimited. He's been in. He was in the original in the Poldark series from a few years ago. What else? He played Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, and the other Fantastic Four, the first Fantastic Four film. Yeah, so he's a good actor. He's been around. He was in Black Hawk Down. He played one of the characters. So these are the movies that I remember offhand. He's a good actor and sometimes he gets bad roles. Anyway, not to belabor the point. And this story is based on. Trying to remember. The series is based on the first 3 novels, and TV series, Hornblower, The Even Chance. Oh, by the way, it's called The Even Chance, but in America it's called The Duel. Okay, and it was based on a 1-to-1 novel correspondence, from what I understand. But other materials from future novels come forward. In any case, let's belabor the point. Now, it takes place roughly around the year 1800. Hornblower, as a character in the novels, fought in the French Revolution. There was Britain's role in the French Revolution, I should say, as well as the Napoleonic Wars that followed them. Most people think of the Hornblower stuff as being associated with the Napoleonic Wars in particular, because that's where I guess the majority of the warfare is, so to speak. And it makes a nice companion piece to Sharpe, which I'm reviewing. So Sharpe is by land and Hornblower is by sea. I have some links to the Napoleonic Wars down below. And I am not an expert. Again, the way I learn things and why people think I know a lot of stuff, which I do legitimately. If I find, like when I come across something I find interesting, I read a lot about it. I watch some videos about it. I tinker with stuff if it's math or whatever. But I'll gain an understanding of what I'm interested in. But oftentimes peripheral stuff, I'll just, except, that's just the way it is, right? So, again, I'm not an expert on either the Napoleonic Wars or the French Revolution. I know quite a bit about them for a laborer, though. So, that being said, Hornblower is a naval character, as I said, and so one of the things to me, and having gone, this is the first time I've seen this TV show, is how well are they going to do the stuff at sea, the naval stuff? Is it going to be realistic? Is it going to be, they're going to have how the camera work going to be and all that sort of stuff? So that's enough preface for this, right? I think I've prefaced everything. Let's do a little walk through the episode. And right away, you can tell that the camera work, and I'm beginning to wonder if the British people filming things with Sharpe and this in the 1990s and other related stuff just had very high quality in terms of producing visual for the background and stuff like that. Because there were no, like nowadays, this might be CGI or Photoshop work. This is actually someone standing by a beach or on a boat and taping this water hitting the shore, And it's beautiful work. Also, I pointed this out in several episodes of the Sharpe review. I have high-res copies of this from an initial Blu-ray release, but this, like Sharpe, while put on Blu-ray, has never been remastered. So you can see the color, like 1990s film on a TV level, unless you spent a lot of money, the colors tended to look more faded. Like I think if they remastered this, they could, well, I should say the colors tend to have faded on the copies made of the masters, right? I think if they remastered this, you'd see more blues and greens, which you would expect looking at this landscape. But it's still pretty visually awesome. So this is Hornblower being sailed out to sea, and to his first posting as a midshipman. Right now, to point out a couple of things, the uniforms. I don't know if there's an actual reason why these officers had these absurd-looking hats and not something more practical, but they all wear them, and I guess it's just the culture. I mean, even the landed soldiers, like the red coats and the regimented men, have these absurd hats they wear. Like now we have helmets that protect the head. I don't know how much that would protect your head. Now, obviously, so for those who don't know, like in the U.S., we have the Constitution up in Boston area, plus a couple other ships around. I'm sure Britain has some ships. Some of these old ships from this time period that survived still exist, right? I mean, technically, the U.S. Constitution is still a certified naval vessel, right? It's still crewed. Technically, it could fight. I mean, it's not an arm; it's a museum piece and all that. But the various navies of the world that matter have maintained some of these old vessels. So I'm going to bet offhand that this vessel they're on is a British, essentially old British naval vessel, one of the few that survived and was preserved and now is maybe a museum piece / movie prop. Again, if the color, I'm not going to comment on the color, but you can see how the colors look faded. So they're below deck. Now, what's happened here is they are between wars, right? So this takes place right at the beginning of the Napoleonic Wars, and the men are bored out of their minds. I'll kind of whiz through this part because there is some sort of adult shenanigans, but this was on TV, so it's not like that you see anything nakedness. But the men have a lot of women on board, and they're enjoying themselves, so to speak. And we got our introductions to the various characters. He, he's saying, now Jamie Barber is in this, and he is a cool. He's like Sean Bean Jr. I remember spoiled, but his character dies. I've seen a lot of stuff he dies. He's most famous, obviously, for playing Apollo in the crappy Battlestar Galactica reboot. But a lot of other stuff I've seen Jamie Barber, and he dies. So here now our midshipmen are having breakfast. These are the officers, the midshipmen, and who are like your working officers. Hornblower's a little sick. They have their own mess hall, basically. Now they're on deck. Again, they're ready to get the captains coming on board, so they'll have to be there. This is standard naval procedures. We're establishing good characterization. Horatio, Jan Gifudo, he's playing a nervous. He looks. By the way, I know he looks older than the character would be in real life. Like if this were a real character, the actor looks older than the character is. Okay, we got to accept that because I don't think I don't know. The actor looks like he's in his around 30 to 35 to me, but the character should be early to mid 20s. And they establish, one thing to pay attention to of details in the back, right? So let's go forward a little longer. These are our main characters for the episode. The captain's coming aboard. This captain is known as a teaching captain who respects the men. Look at the background characters are looking at the captain. So this is good direction. It's a sign of good direction in writing that the background characters aren't just staying there like $25 per day actors, And here we get the plot point that Hornblower's father sent personally asked this guy to take him on, right? So that's another thing, especially in the older militaries, not less so in the modern because it tends to be very. I mean, the mentorship still happens, but it's very rarely that in other words, it's like you sign up for the military nowadays, go through basic, get your assignments, and if you get mentored, it's just someone at your assignment. Whereas more in the olden days, you can go out and recruit people on your own, get them in the military, and then mentor them through their early career or whatever. Yeah, and now I believe this is Robert Lindsay. Who's playing the captain. But it could be. Oh, excuse me. Doesn't matter. I've seen this actor around. I'd have to get a IMDb to see the picture. He's a good actor. These are all good actors. That's the point I'm getting at. So now we got our villain of the show, so to speak. This guy. That was Robert Lindsay. So this is, I believe this is Clayton. Whatever. He's our villain of the piece, and he immediately established himself. He's an alpha and he's a scumbag. So he basically, they had thought he had been kicked off the ship. So now he has to establish his dominance over them again because they thought they were free from him. He's intimidated them all. He's a ruthless killer. He beats people. He steals from them, and he has to put himself over on Hornblower now. And this is well done. Look at the facial acting. Like this guy between Hornblower and him, the character, you can see he's nervous, but he knows he's not going to be targeted because Hornblower is there. So that's what the look is about, Because basically, what bullies have to always bully the weakest person around to properly establish. It's a psychological thing. And unlike the rest of them, Hornblower, even though he complies initially, he knows he has to do something about this long term. Maybe because that's a character thing of him. Hornblower does what he has to do to get through, but he will not, in the face of evil and injustice, he is a character who eventually wants to deal with it. Now, this is another trend that's established that Jamie Barber's character has epilepsy of some sort, or what we would call epilepsy, or some sort of seizures, and that becomes a reoccurring plot point. Beautiful shot of the ship. I really like to see this remastered. So now we get he's beating the crap out of Hornblower and another guy who wants to basically threaten to murder this guy to stop him. So what did it escalate the fights between this guy and the other midshipman? It escalates the level of conflict. It's well done. Now here's Hornblower basically telling the first mate, or I believe it's the first mate, doing the standard thing you see both in fictional and real militaries of when you get these sort of hazing going on, the tendency is to not admit to it because you don't want to be known as someone who can't be trusted by your brother officers or brother enlisted men. And I know it sounds strange, why you couldn't do that, but when you're in combat like this, and all my relatives who are military have told this to me, the person next to you could be a murderer in real life at home, but if you get to you can trust them in combat, that overwhelms what they do in real life, right? Because that when you're all on the line, I remember one of my World War II relatives saying, when you're on the line, you could be between, a murderer, a rapist, and your best friend, and if your best friend is acting like a coward, you're going to trust the murderer and the rapist over your best friend in terms of combat actions, because reliability, it's a thing that's so you have to be able to trust the man on the line next to you, because to resist as a group, so to speak. So Hornblower gets his first assignment, and they go around the town, and what's happening is they're waiting for Napoleon basically to declare war. They know it's coming, and they're just trying to occupy themselves until that happens. And this, of course, gives Hornblower a chance to challenge this SOB to a duel, when the guy accuses him of cheating at cards. And so the guy who was a second eventually is going to knock Hornblower and take the duel for him. And he eventually dies from it. And this guilts Hornblower because he was willing to do what he had to do. Now, as far as the episode goes, I think the first 10 or 15 minutes was very good. Then I think from about, I want to say about 15 minutes in to about maybe 10 or 15 minutes past where we are. Let's jump a bit. It feels a little, I don't know, clumpy, like, yeah, so, it feels a little like it's being forced. Like the plot doesn't flow as smoothly as you really would want. And I think maybe if they had more stuff happen in one scene and didn't jump cut through time a little less, even though the jump cuts and the time jumps are more realistic at how something might have occurred, I think in terms of how they did it, it kept taking you out of it, and like when it would just jump from scene to scene without the continuous flow in that time span. So now we're past all that. The teaching ship that Hornblower was on, the officers and crewmen have been divided out. Hornblower goes on to ship with the new captain, which is Captain Keene, and Keene has heard about it. Hornblower. There's a question of Hornblower's character because he did not show up to the duel, and also that he did the duel. So on one hand, is he a coward for not being at the duel? And on the other hand, is he reckless and a murderer? Is he reckless and willing to do duels? Because this was a thing which in Sharpe was established, This is the time period in the world, in the U.S., Arenberg dueled John Adams, was it? No, Alexander Hamilton, and he killed him and wound up getting in trouble for it. This is the time period when dueling was basically being outlawed as an uncivilized practice, right? So, like the next time period where dueling occurs, which will be like the Old West or whatever, but it's an outlaw practice. If you have a gunfight with someone and you're not the defender, you go out the street and draw on each other, the winner's getting arrested and hung, right? So we're in a time and that's why the naval officers have been, and you'll hear if you watch Sharpe, you'll hear it repeatedly when Sharpe challenges someone to a duel. Dueling is forbidden. So the officers are trying to stop the men by order from doing it, and there's a societal change that this is occurring. So the captain has the concern of, is this a guy who likes to duel people when he doesn't get his way, and because we want to stop this practice, or is he a coward? Now, the way this would work is he would be told, there'd be a file in the modern era, but now what he would have talked to the other captain or got a letter from him about Hornblower and said, and he would have told him what happened, the duel and all that sort of stuff about the nature of his character, and so he already knows the outcome of the duel, and he knows that Hornblower was knocked unconscious. He already knows that. He can't say, we know he would know because of the nature of this type of character, right, and how this relationship would work. But now he has to put Hornblower to the test character-wise, and he's putting pressure on him that he's not going to tolerate the dueling or the cowardice, and you know. Now this is Hornblower. So to test Hornblower, he gave him the most recalcitrant crew he had of people he had. This crew of 4 or 5 guys, and that parallels what you saw in Sharpe, where Sharpe became first a lieutenant, and with his special promotion, and then he was given a very rough group who literally tried to murder him at first, and then Sharpe got control of them, and they respected him. And now the same thing's going on with Hornblower. He's going to have to do that with these guys. And he does very well. This is a pretty good transition when he gets control of these guys and gets their respect. He finds them engaged in illegal gambling with rats, which is a real thing that soldiers would do that with. He gets on them, and he says, he basically lets them know he could charge them. He doesn't want to, and they take it aside as an officer they could work with, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good establishment of them as a crew. So they have he starts with the negative, having something over them and guilting them, but then they become his first followers when he starts treating them well, and he stops them from doing this sort of stuff, and their health improves and all, and eventually they're an effective combat team and all that sort of stuff. So he tells them, "I'm not want to get in trouble" and all that. So that's good. Now they're in combat, and he took the time to save one of the men, which gains the respect of the other men. And he comes back. In other words, when they had the victory, he was under caring for the men, and so the soldier, the word of mouth will tell them that, and he'll start to gain respect that way. And now now commitment. So he's establishing a good relationship, and this is how it builds in real life and in the books. C.S. Forrester was very good about these human relationships in the Navy or any military he would write, but he wrote naval books. He was very good about establishing the sort of way trust is built. And I remember, I won't go into too much detail on the story, but when my grandpa, he would talk about officers a lot. He was a staff sergeant. I don't remember the detail. He was a higher ranking sergeant, basically, and he would talk. And obviously, he had more interaction with the officers, the lieutenants and captains, than the regular privates and corporals would, because he'd be in command of a squad or one of the seniors in the squad, and he was like officer. I remember summing up some conversations, you guys. He was like, you always get different officers. When they get killed, you can have a great one. He gets killed, and then the one who comes in is a total ass, and who don't know, who follow the rule book too much. Like this one officer had my grandfather's company, his platoon, I should say, marched down the road in 2 columns on the road in territory where there were known German bombardments and snipers, and a whole bunch of guys got killed. And my grandfather said, had he lived, we were going to kill him. You know, but then he said another officer he had was literally one of the best guys. You know, because he would always make sure the men got through fights. He had what they needed, and you know, so that sort of relationship with the officers have to build that working relationship with the enlisted men. Forrest always portrays that well, and it carries through to the movies, obviously, and same thing with Cornwell and Sharpe. And we get into the plot of the episode, which this also feels like they filmed it as if it could be broken up into a bunch of half an hour episodes, because it does feel chunky like that. Okay, I don't know if that was intentional. There's a phenomenon in the Sharpe films where I say that, how do I put it, that you know other scenes are occurring because they have to occur for the two scenes that around that stuff would occur. The question is, did they film it and not put it in, or did they just assume you would think it occurred? You know. This is an example. So this is gone in the modern world now, but back in the day, soldiers and sailors, when they would take a town or a ship or whatever, they would get they would get like anything, if they were carrying cargo or wealth, they would get that and be able to divide that among shares under a fairly standard rule. So all the men would get a sort of bonus out of it. And Hornblower has a sort of adventure with his men. I'm not gonna belabor. This is going on 27 minutes already. I don't want to spoil the episode, but you got the idea. All the stuff they have to deal with. Now there is a good battle at the end of this. There's one okay battle in terms of, I wish they had shown more, but maybe there was a budget. But the battle at the end, with Hornblower and his men on the people who take the ship, that's when Jamie Barber's character dies, and then later, you know, someone tries to murder Hornblower, and in the battle with the big nail battle at the end, all really well done. I wonder if the actors were coached, you know, on how to behave, because you could see, again, if you look at the background. And it winds up with the duel between the two, and justice is done. The outcome you could watch for. I'm trying to find a battle. Okay, this might be one I'm looking for. So look at the background actor. That's, again, good sign, good direction. You know, when you see the actors behind the scenes on the side acting as if they're properly in the action, so to speak, to see. So that's my review of Hornblower Episode 1. I enjoyed it, especially once it got to that little chunky part that just felt, it kept taking me out of it. I remember, so like I would watch it, and I watched the first 15 or 20 minutes. Then when it would do it chunky, I would stop it and do something else for 5 minutes and go back to it. And then when I got past that part, I watched the rest of it continue to the end. So that's how my attention spans work. You got to keep me smoothly in there. Don't break it up, like, because you'll break my attention and my brain will say go do something else. It's just, you know, the way it is. All in all, it's a good episode. I would say I haven't only seen one. Like, the movie I saw in 1953 was better than this episode, right? But this is still a great start to the series. Let's call it a 7 out of 10, 7.5. You know, first episode blue, so to speak. It could have. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed my review. This has been Matt from Unbearable 73 with a new show, only an episode. We'll get through this hopefully in 2 months. And, you know, every time I see this stuff, I'm 51. I'm not going to live. I have a reading list of things I've never read that I want to read that has like 600 books on it. I have another list of books I've read that I want to reread that's like 1,000 books. I'm not gonna live. And now I want to add the Hornblower stuff on there. I'm not gonna live long enough to read all this stuff. It's like crazy, you know. In any case, like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Please share this video out there if you liked it. Leave comments down below if you have any questions. I do have some links below to some basic stuff about the Napoleonic Wars and information about Horatio Hornblower, the series, and of course the author himself. Thank you. Have a great weekend.